Hey, flower friends. Welcome this evening. It is your friend in flowers, Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I am so happy to be here with two of my favorite flower farmers, Dave Dowling and Daniel Schavey. And we are going to do some real talk tonight about flower farming school and our experiences. And before we jump into all of that, I'd like to ask Daniel first to introduce himself. And Daniel, in a moment, we're going to talk about just your wonderful business that you have built on flowers. But just kind of tell us of how you kind of maybe in a nutshell, how you got started and what you're doing today.
Sure, I'm Daniel Schavey. I own Petal Pickers in Greenville, South Carolina. We're growing zone 8A. And when I started, I really had no idea what I was doing or how to grow flowers. So me and my husband, Wesley, we do own it's like a house plant boutique in town. And so 8 years ago, I was working there at our store, and we worked with designers who were going and doing weddings and events on the side. And they mentioned that they like to buy flowers from a flower farmer in town. And I was like, a flower farmer? I've never heard of that before. Started searching the social medias and came across Lisa. And we just happened to move to a farm in 2018. That's when I started my business. And this is my eighth growing season or eighth season of selling flowers. And that's how long you've been teaching the course. There was a ninth season in there, but it doesn't really count because
we won't talk about that.
Yeah. I planted everything at once and it all bloomed at once. So it was, a learning lesson. And then I took your course and learned how to do it properly. And it's really just helped me form a business. I had this idea, but didn't know where to start. And it gave me this kind of guide map, kind of with like bumper guards on the side. It doesn't tell you exactly what you should do, but it gives you all the options. It teaches you the flowers that you can grow, how to grow them, who to sell them to. All the options are kind of laid out there for you, and it allows you to kind of build the business that works best for you, whether you want it to be small or something larger, like what I'm trying to do over here. The
And
possibilities
I would say
are
that
endless.
qualifies for large, Daniel.
Yes.
My goodness, it is so impressive what you are doing. So very, very impressive. I never know what's going to come out of your mouth when I see you talking in a story. Like now I see your, so we'll talk about all that in a minute. I'm just really, really impressed. So you're in Greenville, South Carolina, and this is your eighth, maybe ninth growing season.
Yep, that's right.
All right, Dave, introduce yourself to that one person that might not know who you are.
Okay, it's my turn. I'm Dave Dowling. I had a cut flower farm in Maryland for 20 years, stopped that about 11 years ago, and went and worked for Edney Flower Bulb, got bought by Fred Glockner, got bought by Ball Seeds, and I ended up working for Ball Seed and Ball Color Link as a salesperson for cut flower, small to medium cut flower farms across the U.S. I was the president of the Association of Specialty Cut Flower Growers for a total of 7 years, president on the board for a total of 12 years. So learned a lot from that group, and it was great to be on the board. When I did have my farm, I sold at farmers markets, a couple of really good farmers markets that were year round. So I grew in tunnels and greenhouses year round, and also sold plants, and sold to Whole Foods for a couple of years, and also to local retail florists and event florist, like everybody knows Ellen Frost. I was one of her first suppliers. So I've been in the cut flower business now for 30 years, I think it is. Now it's been a long time, but a little over 30 years.
Wow. So, and I'll introduce myself if we haven't met. My name is Lisa Mason Ziegler, and I am the owner of the Gardener's Workshop, which started as a small city flower farm back in 1998. We're heading, over 25 years, and started teaching, and just really found that in addition to just totally loving flower farming and everything about it, I loved empowering other people that really thought they could never do it. Here I was, a city girl, no land, didn't know anything about farming. Daniel and I come from that same line of, I mean, I knew nothing about gardening, hardly, much less farming, and pursued it, and built this great business on flower farming. And we're just really happy to be here with you guys tonight. And if you're signing in here, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, we would love to see where you're logging in on from. And that's just always fun to see where people are coming on board. So we are here tonight to come together. Dave and I are instructors in Flower Farming School Online, and Daniel is one of our alumni. And I will say that Daniel, speak of putting the pedal to the metal, has really done a tremendous job, and he has been an inspiration to me. And I mean, Dave and I both have just talked about, we just need to show up in Greenville, South Carolina one day, Daniel. We just want to come down and see firsthand. I think Dave has been there, but
was there back in April, and it was pretty impressive what he's doing there on his farm. That's a fairly new farm, 7 years, 8 years, whatever. Lots of tunnels, greenhouses, field, just a lot of production. And then he also does plants too, the liners for the moms and Dowling. So he keeps busy.
Yeah. And, don't you think that's kind of what it takes? And I want to talk about that kind of stuff a little bit. But before we jump in, Daniel, I'd like for you to give us the overview of, how big is your farm and what is it that you're doing now, and how that all kind of grew into this entrepreneurial, incredible business that's all based on flowers, basically, right?
Yeah. So it's funny. We owned our own small businesses when we decided to buy our farm, and we had the idea we were going to move out from the city to the country. And I really had never lived that lifestyle. So even just mowing 14 acres was something completely new to me. And I have 8 acres that I grow on for cut flowers. And basically I'm allowed by Wesley to plant whatever I want over there. And so unfortunately I just keep planting. I'm going to keep planting until it fills up. But I started small, and I think that's something that's important for everyone to know. I mean, the first year I was on probably only grew a quarter of an acre, and then it just kind of exponentially doubles every year. The next year it was a half an acre, and then a full acre plus a high tunnel, and then the next year 2 more high tunnels, and so on. And now here we are. We just keep adding, but I also keep moving and refining everything each year. So sometimes I feel like I still what's going on? Everything's out of control. And then it's just, there's certain points throughout the year where it's just a lot. And then you get to regroup in the middle of summer when you're not as busy, in the winter when you're not as busy. But that's also when you get all the big ideas and just start adding on more things onto the plate, But that's how you grow a business. And
I always like to remind people that what you're doing this year or next year is going to be totally different in 5 years. Whether it's your customer base, what you grow, how you grow, it just evolves, but should always be getting a little bit better every year. You get better at certain crops, you drop crops that just don't work for you or your customers don't like. But your business is not going to stay the same forever. Even if you think of McDonald's, they have something new every couple of months, or every year. Your business is the same way. It's going to evolve and change as the years go on. But if you have the background to make the right decisions, you're going to be successful in the long run.
Think about this. I have never thought about this until you said that, Dave. Look at the 3 of us. We all kind of started in the right place.
Yeah.
Not the right place, or in the same place.
Right.
And look what I do today. Look what you do today, Dave, and look what Daniel is doing. And Daniel, I want to hear about what it is that you're doing. I mean, you're shipping flowers, you're shipping plants, I think now. Just give us a little rundown on the services that you're, piggybacking on your flower farm.
Yeah. So we started growing flowers, and like I said, at my retail store, I had a contact of an event florist. So I was able to kind of get in to that community And you just, by being able to provide these beautiful flowers, they would kind of tell me what they were looking for, and then I would see if I could find it. But word spreads quickly when you're selling a good product. And so by, taking your online courses, I kind of had an idea of when stuff grew throughout the season. And I've really spent the last 8 years trying to fill in all the gaps by taking both of your courses. It takes the woodies, the perennials, the bulbs, but mainly the annuals, and you put it all through the whole season, and you're able to retain customers from start to finish. I sell a lot of my flowers to event florists. That's a large part of our wholesale business. I joined forces with a wholesaler this year for the first time. And it really does take a knowledge of the season and being able to grow well, to be able to grow enough volume to sell to a wholesaler. So that's something that's taken me 8 years to really feel confident in and get to. But there's also challenges throughout the season with cash flow, whether you have a shortfall of income from a weather event or a crop failure. Stuff's going to happen all the time, every season. But it's really important to have the knowledge to be able to pivot and, be able to withstand those shortfalls. So one thing I noticed that I wanted to keep my employees through the winter. So we started digging and selling dahlia tubers to home gardeners across the country. Well, how am I going to get in front of a bunch of home gardeners? Well, maybe I need to really focus on social media and really try to find people that I can sell these tubers to in the winter. And then come to find out, a lot of flower farmers actually are looking for tubers too, certain varieties. But that's one way. Then I realized, well, all these people are asking me, where do I buy ranunculus corms from? And I thought about it, and I've never really seen ranunculus corms except for those little boxes at the grocery store for the short, like Aviv series or, something like that. And I thought, I'll sell them the gorgeous varieties that I'm growing too. And so that's provided a little bit of additional income. And it kind of just takes things like that. I think people love following along on social media with our farm because I'm showing them, the ins and outs or tips and tricks. I don't offer an online course like you do, Lisa. That's a whole nother thing to take on. But I think people love just learning something new every day. Yeah. And then while you have their attention, sell them something that they might be looking for, and it's mutually beneficial.
Well, I guess marketing is just really telling your story, and that's what you're doing online, right? And there's just so many people I know that are really interested in, what courses can do for your business. I think the buried headline in taking business courses like what we have for flower farming is the sense of confidence that you get when you not only have reliable resources and access to your instructor to ask questions if you need to, but don't you find, Dave, I know you probably think this too, being with other people that are going, in business, trying to do what you're doing helps so very, very much. I think the bottom line is we're all pretty afraid, and people don't say that. They're fearful to take the next step, to take the jump, to sell to commit to ordering the ranunculus, to then turn around and sell or whatever it is. And it's so helpful for me to be around other people to see, guess what? They're struggling too. I am doing the right thing. It's not just me over here drowning by myself, right? Because the community really helps. Do you use our private communities?
Yeah, so especially the Facebook group. And I think now that social media has been around for a while, there's more chatter, more noise out there. If you search on social media how to grow ranunculus, you're going to get 10 different answers. Well, what if you were able to present that to people who are doing it professionally or really taking it seriously, not just how grandma told them she used to grow her ranunculus. When you have the professional advice or the people who are spending the time researching and getting the real answers for you, it's just nice to kind of have that in your back pocket. Literally today, our team was planting gladiolus corms. I didn't remember how deep they should be. I always remember Dave said to water them a lot if you're in a hot climate, but I didn't really know exactly what to tell my team. I looked it up under Dave's course. I look at it. It's real quick, to scroll through. It's all time marked and stuff. I can see exactly what I needed to find for the spacing and planting depth. And I said, give me 5 minutes to my team. I told them what to do, and it was simple. That's an easy plant to get in the ground, but wanted to make sure that we were doing it right. So I go back and look at the course really anytime I'm planting something new, or even if I'm direct sowing annual seeds for cool season flowers. I never remember, does it need to be covered? Does it not need to be covered? And it's all, right there at your fingertips on your phone.
And so what Daniel's talking about is our online courses are accessible not only through a desktop computer and a laptop, but also mobilely. We have an app. And it is just so easy to jump in there when you need a quick answer because it's keyword searchable. And Dave's darn course is set up like an encyclopedia, right? I mean, it just lists all the different flowers and bulbs and perennials, and you can go right to it and learn everything at one time. I guess the confidence that we gain from having these courses to back us up. And not only that, I mean, to be able to ask us questions, when I tapped Dave on the shoulder to say, hey, will you be willing to do this course on bulbs, perennials, woodies, and more? He jumped in with 2 feet. And the confidence that I hear from his students, because I can still remember Dave, Jonalyn Craver, talking about, she's the one that started the saying, I've got Dave in my back pocket. Dave, what is your take on the benefit of courses for business people? They're trying to start a business and to do it, actually.
Yeah. Well, I think one of the biggest thing is mistakes cost money, and a mistake can be as simple as buying the wrong plant. You think, oh, that's a beautiful Monarda, but it's only going to grow 12 inches tall. It's not the right variety to grow. So, I give people varieties that are good cut flower varieties. So mistakes are really expensive. And if you don't make those mistakes, that means you save that money to either use it on yourself, vacation, or invest back in your business. But like Daniel was saying, you're always going to have some crops that are failures. That just, you have no control over the weather, insects, deer, or whatever might come in and mess up your plans. But if you can do everything you can to eliminate those problems, whether it's then, okay, you have to have a deer fence if you're going to grow lilies and you have deer in the neighborhood. You just have to. You have to protect them from the deer. But knowing that ahead of time. I was at a farm earlier today in Delaware, a small farmer group, and they were just saying, one person saying, my sunflowers were ready to pick in a couple of days, and went out today and the heads were all gone. The deer found them and picked them for you. So it's just knowing that certain crops you got to protect from the deer, certain crops you got to watch for insects and disease. Knowing that ahead of time so you can sort of eliminate the problem before it happens is a big saver of wasteful time and wasted money.
And I think it falls under that you don't know what you don't know. I mean, I was like you, Daniel, and I know Dave was too. Dave, wasn't Cosmos the first flowers you ever grew?
Yeah, when I had just as a home gardener or whatever, I had Cosmos growing at the end of the driveway. And like Daniel saw somebody selling flowers somewhere, I went and there was a farmer's market and somebody was selling bunches of Cosmos. And I'm thinking, well, I could sell this stuff at the end of my driveway. And that's how I got into the business of growing cut flowers. I always had a garden growing up vegetables and flowers, but it's when I saw that somebody was selling those flowers, I've got those, but I'm going to sell mine. And it took a couple of years to get going, but then that's how I started 30 years ago.
So what we're talking about tonight, I'm Lisa Ziegler, and this is Dave Dowling, if we've never met, and one of our student alumni, Daniel Schavey of Petal Pickers, and we're just talking about the benefits of taking business online courses. Ours is Flower Farming School Online. We have a special offer going on right now. We have bundled mine and Dave's courses together. They're $995 for both of the courses, which is like a $395 savings. And, you know, you get instant access to all the content. You get instant access to our instructor hosted private communities. And so my course is Flower Farming School, the basics, annual crops, marketing, and more. It's kind of like getting you jump started and getting your business up and running, from the business part to building a garden, what to grow, who to sell it to, how to start it from seed, and how to condition it and harvest it. And then Dave's course swoops in and teaches you about expanding your offering of bulbs, perennials, woodies, and more. We're going to talk about the course content, but I'd like to just want to also ask you guys the challenges and frustrations that folks might encounter when they kind of go on their own, when they just, because I realize better than anybody, there is gobs of information out there. Not only do we not know if it's all correct, but there is so much you cannot, how many Instagram reels can you save? How many YouTube, URLs can you copy and paste in a document to go back and watch? I know, I've been there too. But what do you think some of the challenges and frustrations are for people going it alone without a professional, serious community and content to rely on?
Well, I would say that just for Lisa's course, the first few sessions, or maybe the first quarter of it, maybe 20%, is all about getting your business and your farm set up legally so that you're not going to get in trouble later on, or you're going to follow the rules, whether it's taxes, insurance, employees, which is really important, because a lot of times people start these cut flower businesses in their backyard, just themselves. They don't think about the business aspect of it, which is really important to get it set up the right way when you begin, whether you're going to be a sole proprietor or LLC. Those are decisions you should be making almost before the first seed goes in the ground, as part of your research and getting set up. So that's, I think, in Lisa's classes, even though the growing stuff is great, but
Right.
the business end is really important.
And I find that people are so afraid of that. And, when I built that course, that's the first class. There's 6 big classes in the course, right? That's the first one. And after I made that decision, I was so afraid people would go in and see, oh, this isn't about beautiful flowers, But I find that that's the part that really scares them the most. And my motto is eat the ugly frog first. Get in and just get it done and out of the way. And then you can because there's a lot of other challenges. You just don't know about them yet. Right. So what do you feel, Daniel? You are in the trenches now. Think if you'd have done it by not joining forces with others that had done it before you.
I would have lost the farm and had to sell it, because I wouldn't have made any money trying to sell my flowers. I think one thing I've learned is farming can be kind of expensive if you're making all the mistakes. And there's a lot of mistakes that are just waiting for you to make them. Whether you're just planting the plants out wrong, you don't know how to take care of them, or if it's customer service because you're selling your product to other professional people and maybe you didn't condition your flowers correctly. I see that a lot with new flower farmers in the area sometimes. And, I feel like your course it says, this is what I would do, but also watch out for this. And you may want to think about this. There's so much information just scattered on top of kind of a guideline that helps save your tail when you're trying to do this to make money. I know I have a lot of, my biggest problem is I'm not scared to try a new crop. And usually there's nothing exciting for me to just try like 10. And so I end up losing a lot of money by growing too many things. And then I have to kind of scramble to, okay, well then I need to make up that money somewhere over here. And I'm going to start extra seeds of this for later. But I think it's important if you're selling professionally, or even if you're just offering a simple bouquet subscription, that you want to have flowers from start to finish of whatever you decide your season's going to be. Even, Lisa, you wrote your book, Cool Hardy Annuals. If you plant all those seeds in fall, they're not all going to bloom at the same time in spring. And that's something that your course explains, like, this is when you can expect this to bloom, and you plant it now, and this is when it's going to bloom, so that you can put together either bouquets to sell at farmers market, or what products you need to line up near each other to make harvesting efficient and to be able to sell to florists. So there's a lot of money to lose without being educated and knowing what you're doing, and at least having a game plan.
That's really true. I think that, again, it seems to folks, and I'm all about bootstrapping. I mean, I think I bootstrapped us to be able to offer our courses at such affordable rates for business courses, right? So they're normally $6.95 each. And with our special offer for Dave and I, which is a limited time, I think it's for a week or so. I think that we're in the week, so it's just a few more days, is $9.95. That's a BB in the Astrodome compared to what you're talking about, Daniel, and Dave already alluded to also, is that just not buying the wrong tulips. I mean, Dave, the tulip story about the person that bought the 10 or 12-inch landscaping tulips,
Right.
thousands of them.
Right.
Just
Wasted
there was
money.
no fixing that.
Right. Yeah. And same thing, you buy the wrong perennial that's too short or doesn't have a good vase life. It's a mistake that you made. That was an expensive mistake.
Yeah.
Even the tools, how am I going to water my flowers? Someone may have like an oscillating sprinkler that they're used to watering their front lawn, and they think that's what they should be using. Or they go and buy hundreds of dollars worth of soaker hoses, right? Everyone thinks
yes.
soaker hoses. And I'm like, no, that's not what you want to use. And your course, all the tools, which clippers. If I go online right now and search, flower scissors, flower cutters, there's a million options. And just by having someone say, use these, this is what I use. You can say that across every aspect of my business, and just learning how to be efficient on a farm is the number one way you're going to make money. And I think you offer so many tips and tricks on all that.
And it's really different than gardening. And it's not just growing a big giant garden. That was the rudest awakening for me, I think. And that's really a big part. So I want us to, I'm just going to run through my courses. I mean, the classes that are in my course very briefly. And then Dave, I'll ask you to do that for yours. So the name of my course is Flower Farming School Online, Annual Crops, the basics, annual crops marketing, and more. And the basics are getting your farm set up business-wise, building a working cutting garden, what you should grow. And we're talking about annuals, low investment, potential high return, which is how you want to learn how to farm, is on things that you've not invested a lot of money in. And then how to start them from seed, who to sell to, and harvesting and conditioning. And so the way that the courses work is you have lifetime unlimited access. That means when you purchase our courses, you get instant access to the entire schools, both of them. And there is just multiple. I didn't go and look it up, but I'm sure Jesse has put the link here in the comments. When you go to the page, you can see it's called a syllabus. That's just basically the outline. And you can see exactly what we talk about in both of the classes. I would be willing to say that in my class and Dave's class together, there's no rock that has not been overturned. And if you have a question that you can't find in either one of our courses, that's why we have the private student groups, because you can ask us questions like forever. It's not like, that was one of the things that was really important to me. I took a course. I actually took 2 business courses, and you only got 6 weeks after you bought the course to actually ask questions and interact. I mean, you haven't even scratched the surface. So that's what you can learn from my course. Dave, tell us what's in your course.
Well, I'll have to put my glasses on to read it, but this is the app that the Gardeners World Cup app for the class. And like just for the first class, it covers lilies and tulips, narcissus, allium, liatris, hyacinths, iris, tuberose, gladiola, acidanthera, and crocosmia. And that's just half of the bulb crops. And then there's another class that is more bulb crops, freesias, ranunculus, fritillaria, muscari, amaryllis. And that's just the bulbs. And there's 2 classes that's just perennials, and then one that's woody plants. And then do another one that's on structures, which is like high tunnels and greenhouses, but doesn't really go into the full depth that the other class with Stephen Gretel at Sunny Meadows does. But it just covers dozens and dozens of different crops you can grow. And I always like to remind people, do not try and start them all the same year. It's like you're not going to, if you're in cooking class, you're not going to cook everything for dinner the first time. You do a few every year until you finally find the ones that work well for your farm. Otherwise, you will plant all those bulbs and all those perennials and have fields of weeds because you don't have time to take care of them all. But I always like to say perennials, first thing you want to plant, as long as you're in the right zone, is peonies, and just go from there. Keep adding new stuff every year.
And I didn't mention it. If you have any questions about the courses, the way they work, or about one of them, please post it in the comments, and Jesse will pull those aside for us. And because what I didn't understand when I took my first online course, like, I guess, gosh, I can't even believe I'm saying this, it was like 10 years ago, is I just didn't understand how it works. But it's really no different than purchasing a book. But instead of picking up the book to read it, you just need a device with internet, and you log in, and everything is right there. There are PDF downloads, videos, resources. And, Daniel, how do you ever listen to any of the course material like podcasts? That's something that the app can now do. And I find that's really useful.
Oh, I've been doing that for a long time, for a few years. So I'm not sure if I just figured out or if that's a new feature. But yeah, I listen to the course while I'm on the tractor, while I'm weeding a row,
Right.
just to go back. It's certain times of year too. I find myself in the summer when I've kind of recovered from spring and how busy and crazy it gets all the way up to Mother's Day. And then I'm like, I just need a minute. Let me not think about flower farming. And then I found myself now listening back, trying to get ready and planning for fall as I'm starting my seeds for fall now. That's when I spend a lot of time going back and just thinking about things. And you said like varieties. I found something that I especially didn't know when I started this was how important like the colors that you're going to choose to grow will affect your sales, and how that correlates with certain holidays or seasons. And we all know this, right? We know oranges for fall, pastels are around Easter, but I've tried to grow a lot of burgundy in spring that never sold. And, also hearing you say, you can always, white, you can sell white for weddings. You'll never be able to grow enough white. And I've never been able to grow enough white. So I like mixing it up though. And I personally have a lot of different avenues we haven't talked about, but we do ship flowers through our website, petalpickers.com, and we ship to people all across the country. And so for that reason, we're shipping to people who want a nice vase of flowers on their kitchen table. And we're also shipping more local to other event florists and flower farmers, even in the lower part of the state, who are needing extra flowers that we grow. So, yeah.
You know, Dave, something that, Daniel's talking about, and you mentioned it earlier, what you're doing today is not what you're doing in 2 years. And having continued unlimited lifetime access to the course. For my part, the basics, it's like you just have no idea what you're going to be facing in 2 years. Right. And that's when you relish being able to go back in, and it's like, there was something in there, but I didn't pay attention to it when I first listened to it because I wasn't facing that problem, but now I am. And you guys talking about varieties and stuff. So Dave, that's how somebody just keeps adding more bulbs and perennials each fall, right? They can go back in and rewatch and learn.
Right. Plus they might, buy the class now and think, well, I'm never going to grow liatris, so I'm never going to grow lilies. But then 2 or 3 years from now, they might think, oh, well, I see Joe is growing them. Maybe I should grow them too. And then they go back to the course and say, okay, this is the right way to do it. So yeah, like I said, your farm is always going to be evolving, whether it's the varieties you grow, the colors you grow, how you grow, where you sell and who you sell to. But the idea is just always be getting bigger, better every year. And if you want to get bigger, like Daniel's grown from, hardly anything to huge, you can do that if you want, or you can stay that small half acre selling at one farmer's market. It all depends on what you want your future to hold. But the courses do help guide you to be able to expand if you want to, or just be the best half acre flower farmer you can be.
Yeah, one time that I've started like adding in perennials is there's always little parts of your season where you have a gap of flowers. And for me, that's always after the peonies are finished and before my zinnias and celosia starts blooming. And so I go to Dave's course and I'm like, okay, what can I fill in that I'm going to have every year this time? And so I started growing lilies, and lilies are the perfect thing to cover that late May through June, July gap. And you can always make a bouquet to offer to sell people with the lily as a focal flower. And they look so good with sunflowers mixed in. But another thing, I have this here behind me, but I started growing. I've been growing for 9 years and I've never grown the drumstick allium. And guess when it blooms? It blooms in June, when I always feel like I don't have anything. And if you put this with a white lily and a sunflower and some eucalyptus, you're done. You could sell that all summer long, Well, you won't have this all summer, but yeah, I'm still trying new stuff every year.
Dave's going to say, and that is the most reasonably priced bulb, right, Dave?
Oh, that's cheap.
Yeah,
it's like buying
I wasn't going to say cheap.
Under 50 cents a bulb, I think. And they're little teeny, the size of your thumb. And they also, if they're happy where they are, they're going to multiply and might get out of hand eventually, the one variety of allium. So if you recently planted those, you should have lots of them next year. So they multiply.
And, something that I see that Jesse reminded me of this, that in addition to our courses that are just really full of every resource that you could possibly need. And, we have set it up now. It's keyword searchable. What that means is we had somebody transcribe and timestamp so you can search a word and it tells you where it is in the course. That is huge. It takes it from being something you just have to sit down and listen to something you can use as a tool in your toolbox. Plus, there are hundreds of frequently asked questions answered, in my course by me and in Dave's course. But what Jesse reminded me of, our Facebook communities, our private groups are so rich with information now, and you can search in there just like you can the course. Literally, the depth of information is unbelievable. And I just want to just show this, over at the gardenersworkshop.com on the bundle page, there's actually a comparison, and it shows you what you'll learn in Dave's and what mine covers. And it's just good at a glance to kind of get a general gist of what the courses actually include. And Dave mentioned the last class in his course, he whets your appetite for hoop and greenhouses, because he grew year round for the busy DuPont market in Washington DC, which is year round, high end, high volume. How many years did you sell there, Dave?
Like 12 or 13. It was a long time.
Gosh.
Yeah.
So what we're just trying to say to you folks is that if you are an aspiring beginner, I consider anybody under 5 years anymore beginner. I was a beginner at 5 years still. You're still just really getting your feet wet and diving in. And if you have already started and maybe you're not getting it all done, you feel like you're on an island and you're overwhelmed, you are definitely a candidate for this course, for my course. And then Dave's course is for everybody, and I will even mention that Dave's course, you can buy our courses separately. The bundle special $400 savings is when you buy both of them together. Dave's course is excellent for avid gardeners because you will not get this information on how to grow bulbs, perennials, and woodies anywhere else.
Right.
So I just wanted to mention that. So Dave, what else would we say to somebody that is sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, $1,000? That's a lot.
Well, I always like to remind people that if they're filing farm or business tax returns, it is a business expense. So even though it might cost you $1,000, it's really only costing you like $700 because you're not going to pay the $300 taxes on that income or that money. So I always like to remind people that talk to your accountant, but or your tax professional. But it is a business expense, no different if you're buying seeds or plants or bulbs. It's a business expense that comes off your bottom line. It's just, I've talked to some of the students before who may have taken the class 4 or 5 years ago or 4 years ago, and they're still relying on it, and it's still making them money. I saw some people just this week at the Ball Perennial Days up in West Chicago. I was there yesterday, been traveling a lot. And there were a couple of customers that came there that have taken my class and were just commenting how, because they're growing these perennials and the bulbs, like Daniel says, it fills in some of the empty spots when you don't have your either cool flowers or summer annuals. And it's really helped them be more successful with their businesses.
And so again, I just want to review. So we have private communities that are instructor supported. What that means is you get to ask us questions. If you can't find the answer in our courses, we have a place for you to contact us. And, that was one of the things that I really wanted to provide, because Dave and I both, and Daniel is probably starting to do it. We traveled all over the country speaking and teaching. Well, when you speak to a group of 100, 200, 300, or 500 people, it is a wonderful day, but that day ends, and then you no longer can have contact with those people because I and you can't answer 200 individual private emails to answer questions for people. We've created a way for our students to benefit from Daniel's question or Lisa's question or Dave's questions, because everybody gets to see the response from your instructor and even other people. So the courses are bundled is what it's called. You can get the link at thegardenersworkshop.com. It's at the top of every page. I would encourage you to go there, read student reviews on both of our pages. I'm not sure if they've put some together on the page for the special page for the offer. And this is a savings of $395. And this is the season to do it, even though we know everybody's busy. We've always marketed Dave's course in the middle of summer because fall is the time. Well, actually, you should order your stuff before fall, right, Dave? That's when it's coming.
They should be ordering their berry peonies and fall bulbs now, but in the fall is when you're also then ordering for the spring. So, but yeah.
and planting all that stuff and what spacing and what varieties, and also resources. We even include Canadian resources in our courses. Our courses are for international students. They're in English. If you can speak English, we have had students from all over the world, and it's go at your own pace. That means, let's just say you bought it today. You don't have to start it today. It is there ready and waiting for you when you're ready to do it. So you can start. And what Dave and I have recommended to people in the past, this season, when it is very, very busy, use it as a tool now. You got a problem, you search word it. But then make a plan this winter to get personal with it, because you do not know what you do not know. And that's something that I think I take the greatest warmth in, is just hearing from people the things like that they have discovered in the course. So Daniel, what else would you say to somebody that's still thinking, I'm not sure?
I have personally made a lot of friends and industry connections through this course. I remember when I took your course in 2018, and you mentioned Kara Jameson earlier, and me and her were trying, and other people too. We all submitted videos for your course, but it was kind of like me and Kara were neck and neck, and we were trying to outdo each other. And one day I was on top, and the next day she was. It was just so much fun. She ended up winning, and then I like see her on social media all the time, and I like send her a message, or if I have a question that I see what she's doing, I'll talk to her, because we kind of have this rapport just from taking the course together. And you mentioned, I think, Jonalyn also. I've become very good friends with Jonalyn, and she's down in Florida. But it's interesting just with like weather patterns, or especially growing in the South, there's a lot more established flower farms, I feel like, up north. But now in the South, a lot of people are getting on board and starting to do it. But it's two totally different worlds depending on what you're growing. And Jonalyn was having some issues, or she had some questions about growing dahlias. So I've really kind of been working with her and teaching her how to propagate them. And I don't think she's ever had a large crop of dahlias. And she just texted me the other day, Daniel, I turned these into 10,000 dahlia cuttings.
Oh my God.
And I said, Jonalyn, what have you been doing? What are you doing down there? But so she's probably going to have a great fall. And, we go back and forth and we help each other. We had Hurricane Helene come through last season, and of all people, Jonalyn's husband saw that we were affected by Hurricane Helene. It had kind of been up two of our high tunnels, and he just happened to be in the area and asked if he could come help me fix them one day. And I'm like, who does? I mean, good people do that, but yeah, that felt really special. And those are all connections that I made through, we all took your course together. But it's not just taking it at the same time. We see each other in the message boards, and we're asking each other questions in the private communities, and you just kind of get to respect and appreciate other people helping, and you get those connections. So when things randomly come up, you can reach out, who to reach out to, and people are all over the country. So,
I think it's really undervalued, that type of community of what you're speaking of, Daniel. That's just really a big part, and something that we say, and we've never really had to enforce this because it's never really happened. Our communities are safe places that people can be really vulnerable. That means you can spill your guts, your mistakes, stupid questions, which there really is no stupid question, but people feel like it. And they don't want to ask some of those questions out in the open. And, it just connects people in a really special way. So we feel like our community that goes with each of our, so Dave and I each have our own community that goes along with our course. And so we've offered the bundle now because you're rolling right into the season of fall that's going to be really busy with decision making and business starting, and we would love to have you join with us. And so over at the gardenersworkshop.com, at the top of every page, the bundle offer, which goes through June 25th, I believe it's next Wednesday, that offer will be available. We also offer 2 and 4 payment plans. I mean, a 4-pay and a 2-pay, as well as, friends, we offer a 7-day money back guarantee. That means basically you have no risk, because we know you're going to love the course. And if you email us within 7 days of purchase and just say, it's not what I thought, I'd like my money back, no questions asked, we do it. And so we would love to have you join with us and take advantage of this big savings. And, you know, as Dave and I always say, it's like, all right, that's like 2 mornings at the farmer's market or 3 bouquet subscriptions. I mean, it will, I said, you know, today on one of my social media posts, it's 1,000% return on investment, in my opinion. And we just see so many people making such mistakes. And, you know, Daniel, don't you think that you wear your family out too when you're stumbling around for more than a year, more than 2 years, not getting it going because you just don't have a roadmap to follow, and you just kind of wear them out?
And then we still kind of do. I'm so lucky that, you know, and you're in with your husband, he's an entrepreneur too. I mean, it kind of takes that special person to understand what it's going to take to run your own business. So I do have that, and I'm lucky. But yeah, if you're going to run yourself right into the ground if you don't educate yourself on what you're doing, if you want to make this a profession. But I think equally, if you're doing this for fun, and you just want to learn how to grow flowers, you know, this course would offer more than you need to know. You would probably just become so good at it, you'd start selling them to and friends or whatnot. But I think education's everything. You know, I remember the first time I had $1,000 order from a single florist for a week. And now that's, you know, that happens on the regular now, after building the business. But I remember that happened probably like my 3rd year selling to florists. And once you start offering and selling good local flowers, high quality product, your name starts getting tossed out by, it comes out of every florist's mouth. They're telling all their friends, or if they're working on an event together, and they're like, where'd you get that from? They're going to say, I got it from Daniel at Petal Pickers. And then the next Monday, I'll get like 5 phone calls from everyone who was working on that event. And, you know, when you have a good quality product and you know how to build the business to sell your product is how you're going to be successful. And I think that's, your course really taught me how to sell. It gave me the confidence to walk into the florist shop and show them my product. And, you know, you say, here, leave your information. This is the best time to call them. Don't call them when they're busy. You kind of give all the tips and tricks to get your foot in the door. And then once someone really likes your product, they're going to tell everyone they know.
It's true. It takes time. And I see there is one question. Let me bring it up here. And would this course fit a need for beekeepers? I've had some ask for a guide on when certain flowers bloom for bees throughout the year in their region. Not really, because in fact, we're hoping, we have tons of bees on our farm. Don't get me wrong. I actually have honeybees a few houses down. But bees, we don't want bees pollinating our flowers just because that kind of rushes the vase life. But certainly you can learn from some of the resources what flowers bloom when. Do you have anything to say about that, Dave?
Yeah, like you said, you don't really want to encourage bees on your flower farm because they pollinate the flower, and then you get seeds. You're selling seed pods instead of flowers. It might be, I wouldn't buy the course to get the bloom schedule for a beekeeper. No.
Right. Yeah. I think that's fair to say too. Yeah.
We will give it times and certain things that bloom, but there's not like a calendar that says you can have lilies and, or, you know, sunflowers certain dates or anything. That's not what it's meant for.
Right. So I would encourage you, if you are considering to head to the gardenersworkshop.com, top of the page, it says click here for the bundle, and go read student reviews, what's in the course, compare them. And we'd love to have you join with us, be a part of our community, and to help you start, run, and grow your flower farming business. Either one of you guys have anything you want to wrap up with?
I would say I did have one person on my Instagram ask the question is, Daniel, how many employees do you have working on your farm?
Well, it changes every year. We have about 7.
Changes every week, right?
Yeah, it does also change about every week, unfortunately.
So about 7.
I have a couple full-time and a lot of part-time help that come in, when we need it. So our production schedule is more Monday through Thursday. And then that's when we're cutting all the flowers and fulfilling florist orders and shipping flowers across the country. But we don't sell at a farmer's market right now. So the weekends are clear. I don't need as many people on the weekends.
Very good.
Well, I appreciate you guys joining us. I really just wanted to hear from a seasoned alumni student that's doing it. We have so many others. I would have loved for us to have been able to get Nicole on here of Flower Farm Hill in New York, and just so many. And you mentioned Kara, and there's just so many. But you have really piggybacked and added so many. I mean, who do you think that you even knew this 5 years ago, that you'd be doing all these things that you're doing? And I just want to say to people, when you get a strong foundation as a flower farmer, and there's just no limit to where you can go and what you can do. Look at Dave working as a cut flower specialist for the biggest horticulture company in the world. I mean, who'd have dreamed I ever write a book? I mean, that was never on my list, y'all. So we love empowering other people to do what we've done. And whether that means a bouquet subscription for 10 or 200 or whatever, we'd love to have you be a part of us. So thanks so much. And thanks, Jesse, for riding shotgun along here with us. So friends, remember, you can find everything we do over at thegardenersworkshop.com. Ciao.
Thanks, everybody.